What is going on, everybody? It is Big B Brick Reactions, and today we're going to be doing another story time. So, um, this is actually from one of my old jobs, and guys, buckle up. This is a really crazy story. So, a long time ago, I believe this was back in 2019 or 2018. And at the time, I was in a relationship, and it was my either second or third year into this relationship. So I've been working at an amusement park for the past 9 years. It's been a seasonal job. The pay could be better, but I mostly go back for the people. It was my first year learning this specific ride, and it was a haunted themed ride named Vampire's Villa. It was kind of a haunted house theme. So what happened was I would be security in the back, and we didn't have any security cameras back there, and it was a pretty old ride. So it was falling apart. You could definitely tell it was falling apart, and I know that ride almost better than anyone in my area. So I know that ride backwards and front. You name it, I've seen it happen in the back. I've seen people doing the nasty. I've seen people painting graffiti. So what will happen is when people do bad stuff back there, they'll most likely get out and they'll just vandalize stuff or take stuff from the back, such as props. And even one time, someone stole the head off of the Frankenstein animatronic that we have back there, and they actually did this while I was working that ride. And this ride is honestly pretty big. It's an indoor ride, and they stole the head while I was in a different part of the ride. So I was like at the other end. But that's not what today's story is about. So this story takes place, so it's 2025, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 2019. So almost 7 years ago. And I was getting pretty used to, like, the gist of, like, okay, this is what you got to do. Go walk around, make sure no one's doing bad stuff or anything. And so that's what I was doing. And on occasion, some people would see me, and what I would hate and also laugh about at the same time is people will get mad at you if they look back and they get scared from seeing you. So it's kind of their fault for, like, looking back, like, hey, if you didn't look back, you wouldn't have gotten scared. So you can't get mad at me for getting scared. So what happened this time around is these guys, these girls actually, there were 3 people in a car, and what was happening is they were all riding together, and one of them saw me, and one of them is a redhead. And no, this isn't going to be the redhead that I will talk about in the future. This was a more freckled faced redhead. She had glasses, blue eyes, and she wasn't really that attractive. And she started flirting with me, and at the time I was engaged to another person, so I'm not going to be like flirt back or anything, because I feel like if you're in love with someone, you should be loyal to them. And always stay loyal, always stay true. The unfaithful are the ungrateful. I don't know. I like to make words rhyme and stuff. So what happened was this girl started flirting with me, and I'm like, look, I'm sorry, I'm in a relationship. And she's like, you can still flirt with me. I won't tell anyone. And no, she's with 2 other people. And let's just call the redhead that's flirting with me Jaden. So Jaden starts just saying all this stuff, all this nice stuff, try to flatter me, And I'm like, oh, that's nice, but again, I'm with someone. Please, like, leave me alone. And she's like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm gonna say what I want to him. Um, I'll say what I want. And she doesn't seem to get the hint that, hey, I'm with someone, leave me alone. Sorry, I failed that mission. But she's like, I like you. I want to keep talking to you. And she's like, what are you into? What do you find attractive? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to ignore you. And so she gets off the ride, but the problem is she keeps getting back on the ride. She keeps getting back in the ride. And since I know the ride better than she does, I start hiding and stuff. And so, yeah, she eventually loses interest and doesn't come looking for me because she can't find me, thankfully. But here's where it starts to get freaky. So what happens is, I don't just work that particular ride, I work multiple rides. So that's something I wish I should have added. And she eventually finds that out, and she asks one of my coworkers, and I'm not too happy that he gave her the information. And she apparently found out my name somehow, because I don't remember giving it to her. And so she finds out the other ride I'm working, and she comes to that ride, and it's a little kid theme ride. And she sees me, and she sees me look at her, and then I'm like, oh great, she's not leaving me alone. And so she thinks she's all clever, hiding behind a tree. And like, she sees me doing my job, doing my business, and she's like, she starts looking at me, and she starts licking her lips. And it's like in an grossed out way from my perspective, like, okay, this is not normal. This is weird. And from that, before I get my supervisor, and I'm like, hey, this weirdie she's like giving me weird vibes, and she's like hiding behind that tree. And he's like, okay, I see her, I'll go talk to her, tell her to leave you alone. And I'm like, thank you, awesome. And he tells her to leave me alone, and like, if you don't leave him alone, I'm gonna have to call security. And so she eventually gets the hint. But fast forward, she eventually starts showing up at all the rides I know. And I actually know a lot of the rides. And I don't know how she got all this information about at all the rides that I know and all the rides that I've memorized. And she starts showing up at every single one of the 19 rides I know. I know a lot of rides. And at the time, I had been there for, I think, either 7 or 8 years. So I know a lot of rides. And so what happens is, I eventually cycle back to the ride she met me at. And it's the beginning of the day, and what they'll have us do is they will have you go to the park early, do checks, make sure everything's in working order. And for this particular ride, Vampire Villa, since it's a big haunted house, I have to go in the back and make sure everything's working properly. And yes, again, this ride is very old, and I'm just doing my thing. And so something else I forgot to mention is that this is a 3-person ride. So 2 people at the front and then 1 person in the back. And I'm usually the person in the back, making sure everybody is staying in the ride, not doing stupid stuff, like not getting too heated, if you know what I mean. And so a lot of times what will happen is other people in the ride, they will come and help me do checks in the back, like, okay, this is up to code, like this is working properly. And if it's not working properly, we'll have our supervisor or security come and check it out and help fix it. And so what happens is, um, me, I know the ropes. I know what to expect. And at the time, on this day, which is like really convenient, um, one of my coworkers who I'm quite fond of, he's working this with me, and he had texted me beforehand. He's like, buddy, do you need anything from the gas station? And I don't live too far from my job. It's like within biking distance. No joke. Like I can bike to and from, and it's my electric bike. And so, um, I have an electric bike that I rode to and from work. And what happens is that um, he he's like, you know what? Since you won't be joining me, since you got to get there early, I'm gonna pick you something up from a Maverick. And for those of you who don't know, and for those of you who do know, I gotta have my Mountain Dew, and I forgot to pack my Mountain Dew for today's work shift. So I was kind of getting a headache because I hadn't had my Mountain Dew caffeine in a while. So I was like, buddy, could you pick me up like a Baja Blast and a normal Mountain Dew and a small Mountain Dew Voltage? And he was like, yeah, sure, totally. And so he had just texted me like, I picked up the Mountain Dews. I hope you enjoy them. And I give him a thank you. He's like, oh, I will be there soon. So what? And another thing, I apologize if I forget to mention things. Just it's helpful to listen to my stories, like from the first story to the next story, because they're all somehow connected. There's some information pertaining to each story, like from a previous story. And so what happens is sometimes guests will show up early, and they will just, they're not allowed to ride rides until I get a note from my supervisor saying, okay, they're good to open. And sometimes we will open earlier than other rides, and that's the case with most rides. Like, okay, great, I got to start this one again. Will open earlier than most rides, and actually that was the case a lot with this particular ride. And so, but apparently Jaden, she had a season pass. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is bad. Because I would see her frequently, and I should have got the hint, like, okay, she has a season pass. But me thinking it's one of my coworkers coming to the back to help me do checks and give me my daily Mountain Dew, I'm thinking it's one of my coworkers. Let's just call him Ricky. So I'm thinking it's Ricky coming to help me back. Yeah, come on, man. Like, thanks for the Mountain Dew. But someone comes up behind me, and I get a tap on the shoulder. And I turn around, and it's Jaden, the creepy girl. And Jaden says, I wanted to see you. And I'm like, what are you doing back here? You're not allowed to be back here. You're a guest. You're not an employee. You're not a supervisor. Get out right now. Get out right now. And so she's like, I wanted to see you. And I'm like, no, leave right now. Leave right now, because you're not allowed to be back here. And she starts getting handsy. She starts like touching me inappropriately, and I start pushing her off. And eventually my coworker who was supposed to meet me back there, he comes back. He's like, what's going on? And I'm like, this girl won't get off of me. She started touching me inappropriately, and she was trying to kiss me. And me being in the relationship that I'm in, I'm going to stay loyal, you know? I'm going to stay true. I'm not going to act on whatever she's trying to do. And so he's like, you know what? I'm going to call security. And since I've worked there for at least 7 years at the time, security knows me pretty well. They know I'm a good worker. I try to get my work done, and I'm very good with all the guests. And this one particular security guard, let's just call him what's a good nickname for him? Steady Freddy. I'm trying not to give out the real names of my coworkers because I don't want to leak I don't want someone to track them down. So Steady Freddy, a security officer, comes back, and he actually has another officer with him. I don't feel like his name's important for this story. Steady Freddy and I have been good friends. He's been there for me throughout most of my time working at this amusement park. And I give him the rundown of what's going on, and I have my coworker to back me up. He's like, yeah, she's getting all handsy and stuff. She's not being too appropriate. So he gets her, I would say, suspended, and she has to talk to security because she's doing something that she's not supposed to do, especially being in the back where only employees are allowed to be back there. Employees that know the ride. And she's like, I love you. I'll find another way to get to you. And she is delusional at this point. She is delusional. And I don't know if she has some mental disability. And I'm not going to judge, I'm going to be respectful. But she starts saying all this weird, I feel like she thinks that in her head, she thinks that we're together. And we're not. I'm already with someone. Guys, you need to understand that I'm already with someone at this point in my life. And, yeah. So what happens is she starts saying all this cryptic stuff, and I'm like, okay, it's not okay with what you're doing. You need to understand that. And so she gets suspended from the park, and she might have actually gotten blacklisted. That word will become important later on in future stories. She gets blacklisted, so she's not allowed to show up at the park anymore. And so a couple weeks go by, and I don't see her for a while, and I'm like, okay, I'm off the hook. But remember those two other girls that I told her she was in the car with? One of them ends up finding me, and I'm like, oh, great. Look, I don't want to talk to you. I don't care if Jaden has a message to deliver verbally from you. And she's like, no, she got blacklisted. She told me to give this note to you, and me thinking it's a note of apology, saying, okay, she's like, she realized what she did was wrong. And she's like, okay, that's not okay. And so I'm thinking this note is an apology note. And what happens is she gives me this messed up love letter saying all the stuff that she wanted to do to me, and it was very, very inappropriate. I'm not going to get too into it. I'm going to let you guys think about what what the note says, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's pretty messed up. And so at that point, I think she just got blacklisted for the season, because later on, I end up seeing her, and thankfully I had a haircut, because I remember when she first met me, I had somewhat lengthy hair. And I tell my best friend Arkin, and he'll become pretty important in the future stories, because he's going to be he's always had my back. And actually I met him at this amusement park, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so it says all this messed up stuff, but then I eventually see her again, and thankfully I have short hair. I change up my appearance, and I actually changed up my appearance because I didn't want her to start stalking me again. And I told my girlfriend at the time of what happened, and she's like, I'm gonna freaking put her in her place. That's not okay. No one messes with my man. And so yeah, but the letter she wrote was really, really creepy and stuff. It was very sexual. I don't know what was going through her head. And yeah. So yeah, that's the time I got stalked for a couple of months while working at this amusement park. And so, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Please subscribe, please like, stay tuned. Thank you guys again for watching and continuing to support me. I love you guys. Until the next story time, this is Big B, out.